I came back from my honeymoon only to discover a massive concrete wall sealing off my own driveway. Not a simple fence. A solid block wall built across land that legally belonged to me while I was away, by people who had no ownership of it whatsoever. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. I smiled, made a few phone calls, and decided if they want to play that game, I'd build them a wall of my own. Before we go any further, I want to know where you're watching from. Leave your country in the comments below. I genuinely enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that subscribe button, because this story only gets more unbelievable from here. My name is Colton Reyes, and just 11 days earlier I had been standing on a beach in Tulum, watching my new wife, Mara, laugh at something completely ridiculous. We'd just gotten married. We'd recently purchased 40 acres of ranch land outside town, the kind of place people dream about: wide open skies, a long gravel driveway, and enough space to finally breathe. Life felt perfect. We were so caught up in our happiness that we never imagined it could disappear overnight. Then we landed, drove home, turned onto our road, and slammed on the brakes. Our driveway was gone. Blocking it was an 8-foot-tall concrete block wall, the mortar still fresh enough to stand out against the afternoon sun. Across the front, someone had spray-painted 3 giant orange letters. HOA. Here's what you need to understand about that property. It had belonged to Mara's family for 2 generations before we bought it back from a cousin who had left it sitting unused for years. Her grandfather always used to say that the ranch was the one thing nobody would ever be able to steal from their family. Those words echoed in my head as I climbed out of the truck and placed my hand against the wall that was preventing us from reaching land we legally owned. At the time, I had no idea how important that memory would become before everything was over. At the bottom of the wall was a stenciled phone number. We called it. A woman answered and calmly instructed us to come to the Cedar Bluff Estates clubhouse the following morning if we had any concerns. Picture Regina Voss, the HOA president, sitting behind a spotless glass desk, wearing a deep red blazer that looked more suited for a corporate board meeting than a small strip mall office. She never bothered standing when we walked in. Instead, she slid a laminated map across the desk and said, "Your access road crosses HOA common property. The board voted to officially establish the boundary." Officially establish it? I asked. "You built a wall across my property while I was away on my honeymoon." She smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind that says the conversation is already over. "The board's decision was unanimous," she replied. Mara asked to see the survey supporting that decision. Regina answered that the survey was still under review and would be provided in due time. In due time. That's the sort of phrase people use when they're hoping you'll lose interest before they ever have to produce evidence. I didn't lose interest. I started digging. That evening I gathered every document I could get my hands on: our deed, the original 1987 subdivision plat, county property records, and the HOA's governing documents. That's when things became interesting. The original plat map clearly showed our recorded access easement, filed decades before Cedar Bluff Estates was ever created. But the updated boundary map Regina had confidently shown us had only been recorded 4 months earlier. No public announcement, no meaningful notice, no homeowner meeting that anyone actually remembered attending. I began knocking on doors and calling neighbors. 3 different families told me nearly identical stories. Their driveways had quietly been shifted over the previous year, always in the direction of the same 6-acre section near the entrance to the ranch. Those same 6 acres had recently appeared in a commercial real estate listing I eventually uncovered online. The advertisement described the parcel as prime, unrestricted acreage, HOA-owned, and completely ready for development. Suddenly, everything made sense. They weren't protecting community boundaries. They were creating new ones. By cutting off access to 4 neighboring properties, including ours, they could dramatically increase the value of that parcel before selling it. Regina Voss was enforcing HOA rules. She was orchestrating a real estate scheme built on fresh concrete, altered maps, and carefully laminated lies. That's when Mara's grandfather's words came back to me one more time. Nobody can ever take this from us. And in that moment, I realized exactly why they had chosen to make their move while we were away enjoying our honeymoon. They believed we'd come home too late to stop them. They figured we'd be worn out, distracted, and too wrapped up in newlywed life to push back right away. They couldn't have chosen a worse time to make that assumption. I never went back to argue with Regina. Instead, I hired a land use attorney and brought in a licensed surveyor. Then we stayed completely quiet for the next 11 days while the HOA convinced themselves we'd accepted defeat. We hadn't. We were getting ready to build. Hidden deep inside Cedar Bluff Estate's own governing declaration, the same document Regina herself had signed 3 years earlier, was a section almost nobody ever bothered reading. It stated that any road, driveway, or access route bordering HOA common property had to provide equal maintenance access for every adjoining property owner, unless that right had been specifically waived in writing. No such waiver existed. Not from us. Not from any of the other 3 affected families. That meant the unused portion of the shared access easement running behind the clubhouse and alongside the private driveways of 6 HOA board members legally belonged to all of us just as much as it belonged to them. So early on a Saturday morning, with a licensed contractor, approved county permits in hand, and Mara recording everything from the driver's seat of our truck, we didn't touch the wall they had built. Instead, we constructed one of our own. It was completely legal, fully permitted, and built precisely along our section of the shared easement, cutting off the private driveway access for every single board member who had voted to block our property, Regina Voss included. By 9 o'clock that morning, 7 vehicles were trapped inside 7 separate driveways. By 10, Regina was standing outside in that same deep red power blazer, yelling into her phone and demanding that we be reasonable. By noon, she wasn't demanding anymore. She was pleading with us to remove the barrier. I gave her exactly the same answer she'd given me. It's under review. In due time. The lawsuit arrived almost immediately. From them. Not from us. Exactly as our attorney had predicted. And that lawsuit opened the door to discovery. Discovery uncovered Regina's emails. Those emails showed months of communication between the HOA board and a private development company. Conversations that began 4 months before the revised boundary map had ever been filed. They proved the concrete wall had never been about protecting HOA property. It had been part of a coordinated plan to increase the resale value of that 6-acre parcel by stripping 4 neighboring families of legal access, including ours. When the case finally reached the courtroom, the judge did much more than rule in our favor. She referred the entire matter to the State Real Estate Commission for a formal fraud investigation. 90 days later, Regina Voss was removed from the HOA board. This time the vote really was unanimous. Real homeowners finally understood what she had been doing, while hiding behind their signatures and pretending to represent their interests. The 6-acre parcel was restored to community ownership and permanently protected from future resale. The concrete wall blocking our driveway came down 1 block at a time. Every dollar of the demolition and restoration was paid by the HOA's reserve fund after the court ordered them to repair the damage they had unlawfully caused. In the end, Mara's grandfather had been right all along. Nobody ever took that land away from us. They simply discovered, far too late, that we were the wrong family to try. If you made it all the way to the end, you already know what comes next. Leave your country in the comments one more time. I honestly read every single one. And if this story kept you watching until the very end, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the next HOA Revenge story is even crazier than this one.